Hi YouTube family, Lisa A. Romano here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I have been contacted recently by a professional nurse who works with Navy SEALs who are dealing with the post-traumatic stress that occurs when they have come back from war and they are trying to acclimate back into society. And I'm very honored, number one, because she has been using some of the work that she has learned with me, with these wonderful men who are trying to do the best that they can to acclimate back into our society and kind of learn how to integrate back to their so-called normal lives in spite of what they've experienced overseas in these horrible, horrific situations of war. One of the things that I want to do is try to find some way to help anyone who is suffering with any type of post-traumatic stress deal with what's happening in their subconscious mind. I firmly believe that all of our triggers are in the subconscious mind, and it is the result of some type of programming. Now, when we're talking about Navy SEALs who have been, or any war veteran who's been overseas and who has fought in a war, we have to understand that the brain has been, again, acclimated to a certain situation or certain situations, and lots of adrenaline is being flowed into the bloodstream. Obviously, when you're in a war situation and there are bombs and mortars going off, and also when the body and the brain is under such stress and duress that it knows that its life is in peril, it's absolutely essential that we understand that anyone who is struggling with constant fear of possibly not coming home is going to react to stress in a certain way. So let's figure out what's happening in the subconscious mind. So when you're being trained for these types of situations, your brain is on hyper alert. And if you've spent a certain amount of tours in a war-torn country, then you must stay in that alert state. And when you are trained to be a soldier and an excellent soldier, you're living with this reality every day. You've got to be on your toes. You've got to be extremely reactive. There is very little downtime. You have to learn how to be on your feet constantly. Because if you're not, then it could cost you your life, or it can cost you one of your buddies' lives. So there is this tremendous responsibility that servicemen have to one another, which only adds to the stress, because you're not only responsible for your life, but you're responsible for the people that you're working with day in and day out in this very difficult situation. And in addition, we have family members at home that we're worried about. We're worried about getting our asses home in one piece. So all of these stressors add to this tremendous amount of responsibility and obligation and fear that we live with when we are battling overseas, and we are carrying guns around us, and we're hearing guns going off, and we're dealing with the trauma of seeing people die before our eyes. Not only for for the people that we work with, but the people that we are fighting against. So death is a very strong reality, and it triggers our deep fear, obviously, for survival. And so what I want to address is the reality that being overseas and fighting in that type of a situation programs you to be hyper vigilant and hyper aware. And when you come back home and you are expected to be husbands and wives again, and mommies and daddies again, and sons and daughters again, it's not going to be like this, that we can acclimate back into that reality. We have to have some appreciation for, and I'm sure there is, and I'm just offering this video up to anyone who might be suffering with any type of post-traumatic stress, who might be struggling with guilt because it's difficult to acclimate. This video is about helping you understand that you're a human being, You've been programmed very much to think systematically and to live on the edge. And that works well in a war situation. Obviously, the more hyper vigilant you are, the more prepared you are for trauma and drama and something terrible happening. The more aware you'll be and the more capable you'll be of taking care of yourself as well as the people that you work for. So understand that that kind of hypervigilance is absolutely necessary. But we have to respect what's happening in the brain. Just because you're in your warm fuzzy bed next to your spouse today doesn't mean that your programming has shut off. So we have to allow ourselves to give ourselves some space to speak to ourselves in our own minds and almost speak to the program as if we would be speaking to someone else outside of us or a best friend. So it sounds something like this. So let's say that I've just returned from Afghanistan and I've had 14 tours in Afghanistan, and I am suddenly feeling better about myself, or I feel more like myself when I'm doing a tour overseas. I suddenly realize that I feel more alive when I'm in a war situation. I suddenly realize that I'm more comfortable in my skin when I'm at war. That speaks to programming. So that means that your mind and your body have integrated to this situation, and you have acclimated to that situation, and you are feeling very comfortable in that situation, and that's wonderful. If you're a soldier, that's what we need to happen. We need soldiers who can acclimate to those situations, and it works. But here's the thing. When we come back home and we're dealing with traffic on the parkway, and we're dealing with people who are in their own heads and have no idea what you've experienced in your reality, when we're dealing with the average civilian who is moseying along, and you find yourself very irritated and very frustrated by the slow pace of this new society that you're in, which is really your original society, but you've been reprogrammed or programmed to live in a different society, and now we're trying to acclimate you back into this so-called normal society. It is absolutely appropriate to feel agitated, to feel frustrated, to feel uncomfortable in your own skin, because you have been finely tuned to be comfortable in a certain situation. For what we're talking about here is you've been programmed to work very well in a war type situation on edge. And so acclimating back into society is not going to happen overnight. And I want anyone out there any soldier out there who has come back and is trying to integrate back into their families to give themselves a break, to help them understand that it's not your fault that you're irritated, and it makes complete sense when you look at it from the perspective of programming. Programming is all in the mind, is all in the subconscious mind. And to be a good soldier, you've got to be on. Your reflexes have to be on. You know that you've trained for dangerous situations. And so that is a part of your subconscious programming now. So yes, so when you feel threatened, you might move your body in a certain way that I would never be able to tap into because I haven't been trained. Certain noises that you hear, they mean something to a Navy SEAL that they might not mean to me, a civilian who's never done a tour in Afghanistan or overseas in any war. That's all normal and quite appropriate, dear ones. It's essential that you understand that those triggers that have been downloaded into you worked well when you needed those triggers to work well overseas. But those triggers aren't going to disappear just because you've acclimated back or you're trying to acclimate back into a civilian society. So we need to find some space in you that you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to feel off. You're allowed to feel the out of sorts, if you will. You're allowed to feel different. You're allowed to feel like it's okay that this isn't comfortable for me right now. there also has to be some space for you to decompress, if you will. So there's going to be a little bit of time, needed for you to slow down your thought process. So what I do with my life coaching clients is I essentially teach adult children of alcoholics and adult children from narcissistic homes and adult children who have come from abusive homes. I teach them how to combat their childhood programming. I teach them how to ascend their childhood programming. So adult children from dysfunctional homes are adult children who have lived in a state of survival their entire life, and they've never even been aware of it. When you're a child who wakes up every morning and is ridiculed, who is abused, you live in fear and you live in terror. I've had clients who grew up with knowing that a beating was going to come very shortly after they heard ice hit the side of a glass. Because his mother, for instance, this one client that I worked with, every time he heard the ice cubes hit the side of a glass, he knew that mommy was going to get drunk and wasted. And very shortly after, there was going to be a horrific incident happen in the house. That happens through observation, consistency, and repetition. So as you can see, adult children from dysfunctional homes, they have triggers too. And hearing that freezer door open, hearing the sound of someone going into an ice tray and move ice around and then chuck it into a glass could elicit a trigger, a fear response in a child who grew up with that type of environment. What we have to do in that situation, what I do is I help the client recognize the trigger and help them realize that was the way their body kept them safe. And so when a client or anyone, when a child suffers consistently in the same way, in this case, in the case of my client, when he suffered consistently after or got a beating after his mom got drunk, his brain was trying to warn him every time he heard ice hit a glass. So as an adult, being unaware of that trigger and being unaware that was the way his brain was trying to keep him safe. Well, what was happening as an adult is if he would be out in a social situation and he heard ice hit the side of a glass, his brain would react with severe trauma. He began to panic and he didn't understand why. But what was happening is his brain was trying to let him know, run, hide, danger, danger, danger. Something bad always happens after we hear this noise. Now, that's a very appropriate response. And that's the way the brain was trying to keep him safe. So his brain was trying to alert him to the danger that was going to happen. So healing someone like that involves me helping him become aware of that trigger and then helping him cognitively understand and appreciate the beautiful design of the human brain. So he was actually fighting against and felt bad about that response, when in truth, his body was just trying to save him. And he just didn't spend enough cognitive time looking at that trigger and appreciating the beautiful design that is pre-wired into every human brain. So that alone helped my client really soften up himself, and he began to feel less guilty about having this response to ice hitting the side of a glass as an adult. And so that also helped him heal any guilt and any shame that he had and any embarrassment he had about the trigger. What I did at that point was I asked my client to please speak to the brain. I mean, I know it sounds corny, but when you say to the brain, thank you so much. Thank you so much for trying to protect me. I understand that this trigger was created in childhood. This trigger was created to help me feel safe. When I heard that noise, I knew that danger was right around the corner. And so my brain reacted with the fight or flight response so that I could flee the situation or I could fight my attackers. But Because I was a child, I froze because I knew that I was powerless. And I just want to say thank you now to you, to the beautiful way that you've tried to protect me over the years by helping create this stress response to this trigger. I understand now as an adult, I can leave any situation that is dangerous. So I just want to thank you, and I'm asking my brain to soften up. The next time that it hears ice hit a glass, I'm asking it to soften up because I don't need that response anymore because I'm safe now. I'm an adult now. And I'm just curious. I'm wondering if that type of self-talk would be able to help someone out there who's suffering with post-traumatic stress. I know that it works with my coaching clients, and I know that the woman that I'm working with now who is following my work, she's a lovely woman who works with Navy SEALs. She has begun using this type of talk with the clients that she works with every day. And she's seeing results, which I think is awesome. So I just wanted to offer up this video to anyone who might be suffering, especially you war veterans. Thank you very much, and namaste for doing what you can to protect our wonderful country. That comes from my heart. And I'm wondering if you feel comfortable doing so. I would love to hear your feedback, and so that I know if I'm on the right track. I believe that it is possible that someone who is suffering from post-traumatic stress, especially related to serving in a war, I do believe that understanding that the brain is trying to keep you safe with the trigger, and the responses that come after we hear those noises or after we see something traumatic is really the fight or flight response that has not yet been, that does not yet understand that we don't need to react that way anymore. So I think it sounds very simple, but obviously it's not. But it's sort of like understanding that we can turn the program off, and we can turn the program on, and we can turn the program off. And that if you, while you're back home, if you were able to speak to your brain and say, it's okay, I'm home now, I'm home now, I'm home now, I'm safe now, I'm safe now, we can let go of that trigger. We can let go of that response. I also have discovered with my coaching clients that meditation is extremely, extremely beneficial. I'm going to be working on a meditation specifically for those veterans who have come home and are unfortunately suffering with some type of post-traumatic stress. And the meditation will be all about trying to rewire the brain and help the brain understand that it's okay to relax now. We can let go of those responses now, so that your being can feel more comfortable in society when you're back home. So what we have to do is understand that these responses that we have to being home, irritability, not being able to be there for our spouses fully as we would like to, is all part of the process, dear ones. It's going to take time for your brain, for the programs in your brain to understand that you're not overseas anymore, and that in time you'll understand that it's the irritability that you feel will lessen as long as you do a certain number of things. As long as you talk to your patterns and talk to the programs and talk to your brain and ask your brain to recognize that it really is in a different reality now, and that being that we're home, we can actually let go and start to feel a little safer. We have to give ourselves a break. We have to recognize that it's not you, it's your programming. That your programming for being a soldier at war was awesome, and it was terrific, and it kept you safe. And it was intrinsic to helping you save yourself and to have you do the job that you were meant to do, and you did it well. Now that program worked well overseas. So now what we have to do is help the brain understand that it is possible to let that programming go and create new programs slowly that will help us acclimate into society again over time. I suggest, dear ones, that you begin meditating And the reason I say that is that we want to begin slowing down the mind, slowing down the mental thought process, because science has proven that most of our thoughts today, 95% of them, are the result of the thoughts that we thought yesterday, or are the same thoughts that we thought yesterday. So if you follow that back and you think about someone who's done 10 tours or 14 tours, you think about that mind who's exposed to war and possibility of death every day, and that type of adrenaline rush every day. Think about the thoughts, and you know them better than anyone. If you've served, you know better than anyone what types of thoughts a soldier has. Now think about the brain consistently going over those thoughts day in and day out and day in and day out for years. Now, we take that person's brain and we bring them into the United States. He goes back, or she goes back to Kansas. That brain is still rehashing the same thoughts that it rehashed when it was overseas. So it's not your fault if you're irritable, because your body is amped up for war and amped up to make split-minute decisions, life decisions. At any point, all hell could break loose, and that has served you. And so now here you are driving down the boulevard, and you've got this 85-year-old man or woman in front of you driving slow, and you feel like you want to go crazy. That's completely normal, because your brain is still running over the patterns, and your body is still running over the patterns that it did when it was overseas. So we have to help you feel okay, that for now, that's the way you feel. So when you find yourself irritable, I suggest that you accept how you feel. Know that it's okay to feel irritable. This is one of the processes that I teach my own life coaching client. Accept how you feel what you feel, and then decide from a higher perspective. So now we're going to expand your consciousness and your awareness of this one situation. So we want to accept how you feel what you feel, and just decide what you want to do about it. Now, the third step is the action step. And the action step has 3 filters that I'd like you to consider. The first filter is, what can I control? The second filter is, what can't I control? And the third filter is, how do I ultimately want to feel? In other words, what is my goal? So let's say you're a veteran who is trying to acclimate into society, and you want to feel more comfortable falling to sleep, let's say, because a lot of vets have that issue. It's hard for them to fall asleep. Of course it is, because you're used to being on edge overseas. So now all of a sudden you're in your comfy bed next to your spouse, and your brain is having a difficult time letting go. Completely normal, because falling asleep and letting go could have cost you your life. And so that trigger is still very, very active. And that program, if you will, that's why I said earlier, it's not you, it's your program. So the program that is associating fear with falling asleep is active, and it's valid. So give yourself a break, dear one, if you're having a difficult time falling asleep. Very, very normal. So what I suggest is this. So let's say you're getting ready for bed, and you understand that you have this program and you have a hard time falling asleep. Accept that you have a program that is in the subconscious mind that is making it difficult for you, dear one, to fall asleep. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. When you lay down in bed, I suggest that you put earphones on and you do an alpha brainwave meditation or a delta brainwave meditation to help you drift off into sleep. While you're falling asleep, you want to say things to yourself like, brain, I am home, I am safe. I ask the subconscious mind to please allow me to drift off to sleep and get a good night's sleep. I know I'm not in Afghanistan anymore. I know that I'm in my home, next to my wonderful spouse, with my kids in the next room, and I know that I'm safe. I know that these are triggers, and I know that I can let them go, and in time, they'll leave me. There'll be no more. I ask my subconscious mind to please shut that program off and allow me to get a good night's sleep so that my body could rest. I deserve to rest. My body needs to rest. These are the kinds of thoughts that you want to take into the subconscious mind as you fall asleep. I'm not saying it's going to work the first night. I'm not saying it's going to work the second night. But I am telling you that if you keep at it, it will eventually work. It's my promise to you. Because your brain has to listen to you. Your brain, when you come from a higher perspective, a non-emotional higher perspective, from a logical perspective, and you ask the brain to do something, it must heed your command. So ask and thou shalt receive. So what I'm trying to do is help you understand that you have a lot more control over your brain and even the reactions that you're having and the triggers that you're having than maybe you think. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you to meditate, hopefully fall into a deep sleep, and wake up refreshed. So getting back to the 1, 2, 3 process, if you're having trouble falling asleep, it's accept that that's a reality, feel that that's a reality, and then decide that what you're going to do about that reality is do a meditation as you drift off to sleep. Do the positive self-talk before you sleep. Because the ultimate goal, the long-term goal, is to eventually put these triggers to bed. That's a pun. Didn't mean that. That just came out. But eventually the long-term goal is to get you to feel safe and at home. Not only at home, but in your own body and in your own mind. So dear ones, it is my pleasure to come into your heart today, and I truly, truly honor you, and I bless you, and I know that if you take to heart some of the things that I have shared with you today, I know that it will have a positive impact on your life. Again, I want to thank you for being you. You've touched my heart, and you touched the entire world with your love and your courage. And you deserve to be happy again, dear ones. You really deserve to be happy again. Thank you once again. My name is Lisa A. Romano, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and you can reach me at www.lisaaromano.com. It is my pleasure to come into your hearts and your homes today. Namaste. Bye.